Hello, everyone, and welcome to Cloud Wars Live, where we explore today's digital revolution by speaking with the business executives and thought leaders who are changing how the world lives, works, plays, learns, and dreams. Our guest today is Dean Del Vecchio, Executive Vice President, Chief of Operations, and Chief Information Officer at Guardian Life Insurance Company of America. Dean, thanks for joining us and welcome to Cloud Wars Live.
Well, thanks for having me. It's a pleasure.
Thanks. So, Dean, it's so interesting these days when, the term digital transformation, even though it's a bit of a overused cliche, the concept is so powerful. And here you've got a company almost 160 years old. Could you tell us a little bit about how a company having that great legacy and history that Guardian Life has, how that is both a benefit to you, and where do you have to overcome some of the inertia of being a company that's been around for that amount of time?
Sure. As you can imagine, a company being 158 plus years old comes along with a lot of technology, legacy technology, and what most people refer to as technical debt. So, and this was no different when I came on to Guardian about 5 years ago. We had quite a bit of technical debt. So I joke around all the time, and unfortunately it's not a joke. We have a system, before we put a man on the moon in 1967, we built our first policy admin system. And I like to say, the good news is it's still running, and the bad news is it's still running. So, we have to try to, think about, when you think about doing a digital transformation and you have systems that were built again in 1967, we have a lot of our policies and a lot of our, policy admin system, monolithic systems are still running and still need to run to service the existing business as we make this transformation at the same time, going into kind of this digital transformation and this consumer facing customer experience that everybody's looking to, to provide this exceptional and delightful customer experience. It's a challenge to do that when you're trying to operate, a legacy platform, transfer to the cloud, and put a front end on these things that has to still attach to a back end that was not designed for the type of transactions and experiences that people are looking for today.
Dean, that is a remarkable and wide-ranging challenge. What's the philosophy that you have to bring to that to inspire the team, to convince, the CEO, the board, and the whole organization that this is the right way to go? We don't have a choice.
Yeah, so the way I've described it too is like we're not competing with just our peer group of competitors that you would think about, other insurance companies, financial institutions. We're competing with an individual's last digital experience. So whether it be a purchase that they just made or another company that they just had a service experience through, we're trying to modify and modernize our platforms to provide the same type of experience you would expect for any digital transaction. So that's one of the areas that we've been focusing on, say, what is it that we're competing with? We're competing with customer experience is really what we're competing with.
Yeah, and people today, with the number of choices we've all got in our personal lives and who we can deal with, as you put it in those terms, that raises the stakes pretty significantly.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the things you don't consider when you think about a life company, an insurance life company. It has the stigma of being a sleepy, old company. And we're just the opposite. One of the opportunities and one of the reasons why I came here, aside from an incredible culture and a purpose-driven company, I felt there was a great opportunity to help a legacy insurance company transform into the digital age. And it's been actually a great experience in the past 5 years. It didn't take a lot of convincing, which I thought maybe it was going to when I first came on board. But the culture was really receptive to this transformation because, again, we're consumers of services ourselves. And we know what good experience is, and we want to make sure we can provide that same good or great experience to our policyholders and our consumers.
So, Dean, with that, your experience, having been in the media business, having been in financial services and banking, how do those from outside the insurance industry, have they helped you here at Guardian Life?
They absolutely have. Coming from more of a consumer-facing and high transactional systems allowed us to bring that kind of sense of urgency, as well as kind of the experiences that we believe everyone deserves, whether it be processing a claim, onboarding a new client, or servicing just a customer with different and more products. We feel like that's something that's transferable, again, across industries and across types of services and products.
Yeah. So, Dean, you touched on a couple of things there. Could you tell us a little bit about, the team's priorities for the next year or two?
Sure. So one of the things we've been on a path over the last 2 years, give or take 2 years, is migrating to the cloud.
Mhm.
So we've made a really concerted effort to focus on our applications moving. So we've made a decision. We looked at an entire portfolio of applications in the company and said, which ones lend themselves to cloud today, migrate those sooner than later, which ones we'd have to re-platform, migrate those a little bit at a later date. And we actually had a major accomplishment back in November of 18, where we literally shut down our last primary and owned and operated data center, which was a huge accomplishment. And one of the things that's unique in my role is because I have multiple responsibilities, I was able to put kind of a catalyst, project out there that said, we sold our buildings where our data center actually resided, and we had about a 25,000 square foot data center, give or take. So we had this kind of T-minus schedule out there, and we had some incentive to really get it done in a time frame, which I think actually helped in many ways put that kind of goalpost out there and said, we have to do this by a certain date because we're just no longer going to be able to operate in that environment. So we were able to migrate about 80% of the floor space, square footage that we operated in that data center to the cloud, and then to a couple colos. So we got down from about 25,000 square feet to 2,000 and two separate colos, in addition to migrating a big bulk of our applications to AWS. So that was kind of the history and the backdrop. Now going forward, we still have quite a few applications that we want to continue to migrate over to the cloud. But more importantly, our areas of focus now is on how do we leverage the data analytics in a much more meaningful way to provide value for our business partners. AI and automation is an area that we have a big focus on across all of the operations. And as you mentioned, I also am responsible for operations for the company and customer service. So technology clearly is going to play a huge role in how we service our customers differently, whether it's the initial engagement in an education process to onboarding and sell to service and delivery of the products and services through the entire life cycle to our consumers.
So, Dean, I want to come back to that, your dual role there, both in charge of operations and also as CIO. But first, let me just touch back a second on that thing of the closing of the data center, right? Because in some ways, after it's done, it seems like, well, that was obvious. Of course they would do that. But when
Sure.
you first suggested that within the company, what was the reaction?
So a little bit of pause, like I said, because we do have these legacy applications that still reside on the mainframe. So I knew myself when I first came on board that one of the things I wanted to do was shift the focus of the technology organization away from the legacy infrastructure managers managing racking and stacking and worrying about kind of the core infrastructure, the data center. If you think about managing data centers, there's a lot of time around the environmentals associated with it, disaster recovery planning and all of those things. I didn't see that was going to be value add as a company that wanted to do a digital transformation and be much more customer consumer focused. I'd rather have the technology organization focusing on new product development, consumer experiences, AI and automation. How do we leverage data and analytics? So that was the communication, the plan I had to both my peer executives as well as the board was, I think we could provide a lot more value to the company if we were more focused on those things as opposed to kind of the traditional CIO function of managing infrastructure for the company. Yeah. So it wasn't, again, it really wasn't that much of a hard sell when you explain it in those terms. And who would argue with, yeah, we want to provide more value. We want to help grow the business. We want to help product delivery and be faster, quicker, better than our peers.
Well, it's a refreshing view of how the forward-looking, customer-oriented thinking about technology can make such a difference today. So, Dean, how do you extend that from your role as CIO also over into Chief of Operations? How does that help you move the company to where it needs to get?
Yeah, so the unique opportunity I had as well was to change the company's culture within in terms of just where we operate, how we operate. So over the last few years, we've been modernizing all of our workplaces as well. So we've been, changing out, and there's a lot of discussion about open space. Is it working? Are people more productive, less productive? We've kind of done a hybrid approach to that. And what I mean by that is we've changed our office space and our office configurations to be much more open, as many companies are doing. But we haven't gone to the extreme, bench seating across the board for everybody, and nobody has any personal space or collaboration areas where they can hold a meeting. So we've designed, I would say, a very healthy balance between kind of the open light and bright, allowing natural light in. All the offices are no longer on the outside. We're only, a select few get the views and the natural light. Everybody gets to participate in that. The offices, they are less, but they're in the core of the building. But we've added a lot more collaboration rooms where there's huddle rooms where people can go and have a private meeting. We have design areas that allow us to leverage, because we've also made a big transformation to go agile and a safe agile. So where we have, teams anywhere from 50 people to 150 people doing planning sessions, they could break out. So we've designed the environments now that can allow for much more of a collaborative, innovative, and agile kind of operating model, which is helping us as we go through this transformation as well. So people are thinking differently. When you walk in some of our facilities, you would think you're in a Google or an Amazon type environment, because they just don't feel like that traditional, insurance company feel and look. So we're doing that for many reasons. One, to support the culture transformation we're making, but more importantly, to help retain our talent, develop our talent, and recruit new talent into the environment.
Yeah, Dean, the points you just made there about talent, culture, in some ways for a long time, people would think, well, what does the CIO have to do with those things? But it's such an essential part of everything you do now, right? How do you bring the people in? How do you infuse them with this notion of, we're not here to just, tinker with the infrastructure. We're here
Right.
to create, fantastic customer experiences. So what's that journey been like for you?
So in that area too, what we've been doing a lot internally, we've been creating a culture of innovation. And what I mean by that is we've allowed our employees to participate at all levels, and we've created innovation challenges across the company. And it could be anything. And one of the key challenges we did, for example, was how can we improve overall customer experience? So it's that broad of a question. And we had about 5,000 of our employees participate in that challenge, where they just, they would recommend an idea. We put it in a system internally, we call it Idea Hub, but it allows people to submit an idea, allows other people, if they like that concept or idea, they can add to it. They can participate, they can comment. And then we actually go through a whole kind of voting process, a pairwise comparison. And then we actually do Shark Tanks, and we give the employees an opportunity to present their concept. And we'll vote, and then we'll take it to from a prototype to a minimum viable product, and in some cases it'll make it to. The hope is that it would make it to a production release of something that would either improve customer experience, maybe even a new product for that matter. So we're engaging our employees in the overall innovation, and we've identified in kind of three categories that most companies do. A core innovation is just anything you do today. Could you do it differently and make it better, faster, easier? Or an adjacent innovation is something that somebody else is doing that maybe we can adopt in our industry that it seems to be working well. And then finally, as most people think about innovations, that transformational type innovation, right? The invention of the wheel or fire for that matter. We have those type of big ideas that take a little more investment and time. So that's been one way that we've been able to kind of infuse this, concept within our employee base. And then at the same time, we've actually leveraged our partners. We have a very structured kind of partnership program with our vendors, and we have strategic vendors, our emerging vendors, and we do the same thing with them. We give them an innovation challenge, and they come in and present their ideas and so on. And we've actually had really good feedback from that, and we've actually gotten thousands of ideas over the last few years from between our employees and our vendors, and a subset of those will make it through to an actual minimum viable product. But it's a great opportunity for people to get engaged and feel part of the solution and creating a value add for the company and our consumers.
And Dean, it sounds like, with that sort of environment, people inside the company have their opportunities to showcase their best ideas, to be involved in that culture of innovation. And your expectations to the tech community is not just, hey, I'm not just going to buy stuff from you. I want your ideas. I want to know what you think. I want you to participate in our mission. And
Exactly.
I just laugh about it. There's a T-shirt I saw not long ago. It said, the beatings will continue until morale improves. So, there's an old way of looking at things. It sounds like you're really enjoying this embrace of a new way of driving innovation.
Yeah, absolutely. And then, like I said, the environments create people to want to innovate as well. We have these design dens, as I mentioned. We have these open area forums where people can see what's going on at any point. We kind of have our epic walls where we have our programs that are up in the open for everybody. Anybody can walk by and see what's going on in the company and maybe just ask questions, or maybe raise their hand and say, how can I get involved with that program? Or I have an idea for that program. So it's again, we've been at it for a couple of years. I think there's plenty more to still do, but it's great to see the interaction, and it actually exceeded our expectations when we saw the participation in some of these challenges. Like I said, we've had thousands of people participate in any one challenge at a time.
Yeah, boy, great stuff. And I know, Dean, among the tech vendor partners that you have, also expecting them to bring their best ideas forward to participate in this culture of innovation. And certainly AWS has been one of your key suppliers, and you gave a big keynote talk there at the recent reInvent
Yes. Yeah.
event.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about the role that AWS has played and how they've helped you move the company to where it is and to where it needs to be.
Yeah, they've been actually a great partner. As I mentioned earlier, we do these innovation challenges with our partners, but we also have a pretty formal program in how we define who's going to be strategic, who's emerging, who's transactional, or value type partners. And the last 2 years, we give out awards to as the most innovative partner, the CIO award for the partner, or the the partner of the year award, and they've actually won the last 2 years. And because of they've been a really, and when I say a strategic partner, what we do with our vendors is we actually, what we do is a kind of a reverse EBC. So we share with them everything about us, what are our programs, what's important for us, before we go and do an EBC visit with them, so they could be very targeted and tailored on where they think they can add value and help us, meet our goals and deliver our promises for our consumers. And what they've done with us over the last couple of years, we spent a year preparing the environment at Amazon, and then we took a production first approach to migrate our platforms over there. And they provided engineering, very senior architects and engineers to help us design a solution that would make sure, because we operate in a very highly regulated industry, that we were comfortable moving our systems there and some of our customer facing type systems there. And the one thing, like I said, they did was they provided us with very senior leadership as well as technical architects to help us design these solutions. And when we did identify, as I mentioned in my reInvent speech, when we did identify gaps, because clearly there were, they really stepped up and helped us co-create products like Macy and Guard Duty to make sure that we were going to be able to satisfy the legal, the regulatory requirements that we had to operate in. So they've been there the whole way with us, and they continue to be working with us and addressing the gaps where we've had to put in other tools and process to fill those, to make it more of a mainstream, generally available product for us.
Dean, as you described that, it's fascinating because I laugh sometimes when I see some observers say that, well, this cloud infrastructure business, it's a race to the bottom, and there's no end of it. It's just a low cost thing. When you're talking about the exact opposite, senior leadership, understanding your business, almost like co-creating with you this new path forward into the future, and that seems to be, that has to be the model right now for how the tech industry engages with business leaders like you.
Absolutely, and the other reason why we went there too, like I said earlier, I didn't want to have my staff and resources focusing on the kind of the traditional infrastructure of, the platform as a service type technologies. But more importantly, I wanted to be able to participate in the startup, the startup world, because there's a lot of startups right now. InsurTech, wasn't even a concept a few years ago. Now there's, billions of dollars being invested in InsurTech. Now we feel like we're in a platform and we're capable of testing and learning a lot faster than we have in the past, with a much less of an investment. But we have access to these new technologies and just as importantly, the people that are developing these new technologies, that we can participate in this potentially new ecosystem in a much more effective way than if we had to try to bring them into our data center and follow all the, the traditional kind of trying to onboarding a small company into an enterprise. We can do that much more in a controlled fashion, but we could also do a lot more of them much more expediently.
Well, it sounds like just the same way inside the company with your offices and the office space, you've torn down the walls. You're doing that with your relationships as well, right? With strategic partners.
Exactly.
Better way to go. So, Dean, two more things I wanted to check with you.
Sure.
Part of your role as CIO, that job, that function of the Chief Information Officer has changed so much where do you see it today, and where do you think it should be headed?
Yeah, so I think, just with my existing experience here and prior to coming here as well, I had kind of the CAO role when I was at Dow Jones. And I also had, real estate facilities, sourcing, procurement. Here now I've picked up the HR operations and now all of the customer service and operations. I think the CIO of today is, like the traditional managing infrastructure, that's not going to be an option anymore for CIOs. And I think as you hear about all these digital transformations that are going on, and the term's used quite often and broadly, but I think as a technology leader in companies today, you have to think much more broadly. You have to think about how do you enable business growth? How do you enable the customer experience journey that everybody's going on? And I've been fortunate enough to have these other responsibilities because I think they are 99% of it is technology enabled in some way, shape, or form. So we've been able to speed up the process of adoption in many of these areas now, because I don't have to convince my business partners because I am my business partner in many cases. So it's actually allowed us to move a lot faster in adopting now AI and automation in some of the operations areas, because again it's all under one type of area of responsibility, which helps facilitate the adoption, because I'm convinced.
Yeah, and that's you're a fairly key stakeholder there, as you said. You are the business partner.
I'm my own customer, which is unique, and sometimes I get into a debate with myself at times.
So, Dean, the last thing I wanted to check in with you on is, so throughout you've touched on some of the really profound changes taking place in the insurance industry. So, look over the horizon a little bit. Where do you see that business headed? Yeah,
so as I mentioned earlier about AI and automation, I think those are two areas that are going to, if you think about the whole life cycle of kind of the insurance product, whether it's, the purchase of the product and then the servicing of the product, the claims processing, the underwriting that takes place up front, and then the overall service delivery all the way through the life cycle, I think the entire process has room for automation. A lot of what we do and a lot of the systems and processes were very manual for many years. I think a lot of those we can provide much faster onboarding. The underwriting process could happen a lot faster. Today, when you have to draw fluids and blood and so on, it takes weeks, if not months sometimes for that process. I think with additional data points and additional data sources, we can do that much quicker. So we can make it much more of a seamless and process with a lot less touch points. So I think that the whole experience is going to get easier and more pleasurable and more delightful than it is today. So I think there's a lot I think the next 3 to 5 years are really going to be exciting for the insurance industry.
Yeah, and that's pretty wild. What you said there, delightful might not be a term that some people connect with, the life insurance business or the experiences we and consumers have, but it is possible.
Right. It is possible. Absolutely.
And that's what matters. Dean, before we go, is there anything that you wanted to be sure to mention that we haven't touched on?
No, I think we covered a lot of areas. Again, I think the one area that I would like to just, mention again, and you brought it up about the role of the CIO. I think, now it's a great time to be a CIO. I think, shifting from kind of the cost center view to an enabler and a value proposition is really where I think the role is going. And I think you'll see a lot more CIOs taking on a lot more responsibility in operations and in digital transformation and customer experience. I think you're going to see a lot of that growing throughout the industries.
Fantastic. Well, Dean, this has been great. Your insights and the ideas here and the achievements are really remarkable. So thanks for taking the time to share those with us.
No, thank you. My pleasure.
It was great. And thanks also to all of you for watching here at Cloud Wars Live, where we're exploring this digital revolution that's taking place. You heard some great examples of it here from Dean at Guardian Life. And please share your feedback with me at bobevanspa@gmail.com. Dean, thanks again. It was great to have you, and I hope all of you folks will have a chance to come back next time.